What's up, Brad Squad? It's your boy Jonathan Elias here. Now, this week we're celebrating Hanukkah, the Jewish Festival of Lights. Now, according to the Pew Research Center, there are currently over 14 million Jewish people around the world, with 5.8 million living here in the U.S. At the end of each year, they celebrate Hanukkah. Now, food is a big part of this holiday, so we have been invited by cookbook author Leah into her kitchen to show us how she celebrates. Her latest release, The Jewish Cookbook, was named a Best New Cookbook of Fall 2019 by Food and Wine, Eater, The Kitchen, and Forbes. Now, Leah specializes in Jewish cuisines from all over the world, and I cannot wait to go and meet her inside to eat some latkes. Come join. All right, squad, we are here with Leah, and it smells pretty good over here right now. Leah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me into your place, your home. It's beautiful here. I feel at home. So let us know, what do you have over here that you made for us?
Sure. So it's Hanukkah, which is a really joyous festival that comes once a year. The kind of basic story is a long time ago, in ancient Judea, there was this king named Antiochus. He was like a Hellenistic king, and he basically tried to take over and tell the Jews, they weren't really called Jews at the time, that they couldn't practice their religion anymore, so they either had to convert or be killed. Not cool. So the story is there was this sort of scrappy band of kind of like warriors called the Maccabees, and they fought back, but they were definitely the underdog. And Antiochus's armies destroyed the ancient temple in Jerusalem and knocked over all the menorah. And so the Maccabees won. And when they went into the temple to kind of rededicate it and clean up the mess, they found just enough oil to last for one night. But the miracle, the story of Hanukkah, is that oil lasted for 8 nights. So that's kind of the miracle. Yeah.
So that's where the 8 nights come from. Wow.
That's where the 8 nights come from. That's where the 8-branch menorah comes from. Yes. And it's also why we fry foods, because of the oil. Yeah. Because they didn't have candles, like beeswax candles like we use. They had olive oil and wicks. Yeah. So one of my favorite expressions, the one I grew up eating, is fried potato latkes, which are essentially grated potatoes with egg and flour or matzah meal, grated onions, so it's got a lot of good flavor, and then you put that all together and fry it in a pan, and kind of hard to argue with that. So it's not really about the potato, because potatoes are a new world food, right? They come from modern day Peru, that's where they originated. So it wasn't until the 18th or 19th century where the potato kind of made its way to Eastern Europe, whereas potato latkes come from. But at that point, it caught on like wildfire, and there's so much potato goodness in Eastern European traditions and cooking. So eventually they just kind of figured out that fried potatoes tasted delicious. And so that's how it became a tradition. And you have apples to make the applesauce, which is one of the common toppings for potato latkes.
So I definitely did not know about the applesauce.
Yeah, applesauce and potato latkes may sound a little strange, but it's actually one of the most common, and it's super delicious.
So I've been looking at it and I've been smelling it. So can we get a little bite or something while we just talk? Yeah.
You tell me. So we have 2 types of latkes here. We have a regular potato latke, which I'll give you one of those.
Okay.
And we also have a sweet potato latke with curry in it, which is a more modern expression. It's not a traditional latke, but I think they're really, really special. To try that. So this applesauce is the same one I grew up eating that my mom made. She always kept the skin on the apples, and that's why it has that kind of rosy color. And she always blended it really smooth, which I loved. This is sour cream, which is the other common topping. I put za'atar, which is a Middle Eastern spice, and olive oil on top. So it kind of gives it a little something different. And then this is labna, which is also Middle Eastern. It's like a strained yogurt, and it's mixed with everything bagel spice. This is a romesco sauce, which is roasted red peppers and almonds. I don't want that to touch the applesauce.
So with all of these, different toppings, especially some of the ones that aren't so traditional.
Yeah.
Were they all just like from you, like trying to put
Yeah.
things together?
So one of the things I like to do is to take traditional dishes and find ways to make them feel modern and fresh and kind of 21st century and, you know, put my own spin on them.
Yeah.
So lox is just like, you know, the quintessential bagel topping, but when you have like sour cream, I feel like it goes really, really well. So here
Okay,
you go.
guys. All right, here, you
Want
want
me
to
to
hold
hold
this?
it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're going to try
Here, I'll help you.
this one. I
Yeah.
really want to do this applesauce one because
I hope it expands your horizons of yumminess.
wow.
Pretty good?
It's actually amazing.
You know what? The way I think about it is if you go to a diner and you have hash
Wow.
browns and you have like maple syrup on your sausage or whatever and some drips over.
Yeah.
And it's like that sweet crunchy potato thing. It's kind of the same idea.
Wow. I definitely want to try this curry one.
Yeah,
now.
I would do that one.
That's
Yeah,
what I
maybe
thought.
the sour cream.
Okay.
I love its color. It's like
Yeah.
bright orange. It looks like the sunset.
And it tastes like it too.
Yay!
This is really good.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will say, I fried these ahead of time. Some people
Oh
don't
my
think
goodness.
you have to make them like right then, but you can reheat a latke. It tastes good.
That curry tastes really good in that. All right, so first of all, you know, of course, the regular latkes is amazing. But this curry, the sweet potato curry one, you know, curry sometimes can be very overpowering. And the way that you have made that, it's literally perfect. How is it with finding spices and, you know, stuff that you've been using for these?
This recipe comes from the Jewish cookbook, which was my most recent cookbook. I try really hard when I'm developing recipes to kind of get the balance just right so that anybody at home can recreate them. But I'm also really lucky because I live in Kensington, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. Well, it's right next to Borough Park, so we're right next to a very Orthodox Jewish world. There's a large Bangladeshi South Asian community and a Pakistani community. So the food shopping, it's kind of like the best of both worlds because I can find kosher cheese and I can also have access to just beautiful spices and produce just at like the 24-hour bodegas and fruit markets nearby. So it's awesome.
So what gave you interest in finding the diversity of Jewish cooking?
Well, here in the States, about 80% of the Jewish population comes from Eastern Europe or Central Europe, which is called Ashkenazi. That's the type of Judaism. But if you go around the world, I like to joke that aside from Antarctica, Jews have lived and cooked everywhere. So Jewish food is really a global cuisine. You know, I'm used to things like matzo ball soup and brisket and potato latkes and things that like Americans know when they think about Jewish food. But so when I'm looking for recipes, I'm really looking at Jewish food from the perspective of it being global. And so, you know, the Middle East is one place Jews have lived and live. And whether it's Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Israel now, there's just a whole world to explore.
Yeah.
If you went to a Moroccan Jew's home on Hanukkah, you would not have potato latkes. No, you would have svenj, which are like these kind of rustic donuts that they dip in sugar syrup or honey syrup that are so delicious. Cuisines develop based on cultural practices, but also on agriculture, right? So if you're talking about Jewish cuisine in Eastern Europe, where it's cold, it's going to be totally different vegetables, spices, local produce than if you're like talking about, you know, Jews in India or anywhere else in the world. When I was growing up, you wouldn't see like hummus on people's tables necessarily. But now, like if you go to even an Eastern European Shabbat table, you'll have challah and you'll have hummus, which is a Middle Eastern dip,
close.
right?
Yeah.
So you're starting to see fusion happening in really delicious ways.
So I would love to know about your family history, where they're from, and the immigration story.
Yeah, so my dad's side of the family actually isn't Jewish, but they're from Germany. And so they came probably, I think when like most Germans came to America in like the 1840s and 50s. And then my mom's side of the family, which is the Jewish side, is from Russia and Lithuania. So that is pretty straight Eastern European Ashkenazi cuisine. So when we were growing up, we were not a half and half household. Like some families do Christian traditions and Jewish traditions, but my dad didn't really care one way or the other, and my mom did. So we only celebrated Jewish holidays.
Let's talk about your cookbook. So tell us the process, tell us what it's about.
So I've written 6 cookbooks, but the 2 that I kind of talk about the most, one is called Modern Jewish Cooking. That one came out in 2015 and is finding ways to bring traditional recipes into the 21st century. And then the second cookbook, that's my most recent one, is called The Jewish Cookbook. So the point of those books is to really try to capture as much of the entirety of whatever cuisine they're focusing on. So it's 425 recipes of mostly home-cooked Jewish food from around the world. And then 25 of the recipes are from chefs who are doing kind of interesting modern expressions of Jewish food all over the world. And that book really for me was like the culmination of what I had been doing for the last 10, 15 years as a food writer, because it really allowed me to decide that for me, Jewish cuisine wasn't going to just be what I grew up with. I wanted to expand the categories. And now some of the foods that I didn't grow up eating are some of my favorites.
Lastly, before we leave, I do want to know, so what is your American dream?
I think my American dream is that my two kids grow up understanding that the world is better when we are aware and find joy in other people and people who are different than ourselves. And not that we dim our own lights and not that we don't celebrate our own stuff and who we are, because, you know, there's joy in our own traditions, but that we expand our traditions. So my American dream doesn't have anything to do with prosperity or anything like that, although they wouldn't mind. Yeah. For me, the American dream is really not just acceptance, but actual like love for other people and sharing experiences and allowing my light to make your light brighter and your light to make my light brighter. That's my American dream. And Latkes.
Yes. Thank you so much for schooling myself and everybody else about the history of Hanukkah and Latkes.
But it was my pleasure. Thank you for coming and sharing it with me.
Absolutely. Pleasure is mine. And everybody, I'm going to finish this first. All right. Bye.